Hello and welcome to Six Pack. Today I'm gonna continue the story What If Deku Was a Mime Hero? Part 2. If you enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
I went through all this trouble to gather all this fodder, and I even got special permission to bring out Nomu. Shigaraki continued, oblivious to Eraserhead's panic. The Schedule 1 got said he'd be here, he said, gesturing to the purple behemoth next to him, which had not yet made a sound or shown any signs of awareness of its surroundings. Shigaraki scoffed, irritated. So much work, just to kill All Might, and he's not even here. Izuku signed, grabbing the villain's interest. Then he gestured toward the Nomu. Though Aizawa considered saying something, she chose to remain silent, thinking that Shigaraki would at least be able to provide Izuku with some useful information. A student dressed like a mime would likely be underestimated by the man and much more willing to divulge information. Oh, Deku the mime training to be a hero. That's interesting and something worth telling Sensei. But you want to know about the Nomu, don't you? Understandable, since he's the only one of its kind, Shigaraki exclaimed. The fact that a fucking villain knew who Izuku was made Aizawa cringe. How well known was the mime Deku? Oh yeah, he was genetically engineered to be able to go up against All Might. The whole reason he was actually created. Oh, you should be impressed. This guy has numerous quirks that will help him kill All Might. Then again, since All Might's not here, maybe if I kill a few of his colleagues and students he'll come. Sad face, I'm a villain, what did you expect? Now Nomu, grab one of those pros and teach them a lesson. A side villain whispered, how the hell did the boss man understand what the hell the mime was saying? The hell if I know. The purple beast's muscles tensed, then burst into a blur. But before the beast could grab Vlad King or Aizawa, Izuku pretended to be a spiked wall shielding the two experts from Nomu, who crashed into the unseen structure. Two pros and a hero trainee found it painful to listen to its loud screeching from being impaled. For a mime, you sure are a high-level player, but Nomu is higher. Izuku's wall was destroyed in a matter of seconds, and Nomu was already recovering from the numerous large stab wounds that were scattered all over his body. Despite the black substance dripping down its torso, the mutant monster was mending itself, and Aizawa, Vlad, and even Izuku couldn't help but stare in amazement. The sight of the Nomu's rapid healing caused the eyes of all three heroes to widen with surprise. So, he can heal himself? Aizawa muttered, concerned about how this fight would turn out should that be the case. Now then, Nomu kill one of the heroes already. Shigaraki corrected, TCH, more like regenerate. Upon its completion, Nomu vanished, only to resurface before the pros and Izuku, who threw them across the plaza like dolls. As soon as the heroes were dispersed, Nomu started running toward Vlad King, who had not yet stood up due to severe injuries from Nomu's blow. Upon recognizing the Nomu's goal, Izuku instantaneously triggered One for All. Merging this ability with his peculiarity, he fired an arrow through the creature's chest, presumably to reach its heart. Although he didn't really want to kill anyone, he knew he would choose to save his teacher over killing or hurting that creature. Vlad King was dragged out of the way by Izuku as the creature started to cry out in agony from the arrow shot. Eraserhead and Izuku now had the task of completing the rescue and saving everyone. Though Kendo would never acknowledge it, she was afraid for her naive boyfriend. Upon splitting up with the other students and leading them to the USJ entrance, she and Bakugo saw Izuku fighting a monstrous bird-faced creature, which instantly sent shivers down her spine. Using his explosions to soar towards the plaza, Bakugo growled, that damn nerd is fighting all the strong villains. Unfortunately, Kendo was left to run and catch up. When the bird beaked Nomu hang lined up, Aizawa was in mid-dash and landed flat on his back. Izuku signed, Sensei, and leapt toward the beast. With all the strength he could muster from One for All, he slammed a hammer he had made into its chest in the hopes of inflicting some damage on the villain. In addition to infuriating the Nomu, Izuku managed to push it back a short distance from Aizawa's body. Izuku's brief moments of joy were, sadly, fleeting as the Nomu immediately stood back up and charged at Izuku, slapping him aside to divert its attention to the man on the ground. Even though Nomu was still a mindless monster, it was aware that the man beneath its foot was meant to be hurt, so it started gently pressing its foot down on his chest. Izuku cringed at the sound of what was probably multiple broken ribs, felt his own pain from that slap and the possibility of broken bones, and heard Aizawa groan softly. Shigaraki said absently, Nomu, don't kill him just yet, I want All Might to witness that. Then he turned to face Izuku, who was mid-loading a cannon he had mimed. Deku, on the other hand, move quickly to apprehend him, the adolescent with green hair said. Nomu screeched as he raced toward Izuku, who responded equally fast, firing the cannon and piercing the Nomus's chest with a massive hole. Until the monster started to regenerate its chest, Izuku smiled at the damage he had inflicted upon it. When it was completely healed, it shot back toward Izuku. With a shocked expression, Izuku watched as the recently revived Nomu lunged towards him and then swiftly mimed a wall in front of him. Izuku then boxed the enormous creature inside as the Nomu smashed into it, gradually shrinking it down and crushing the Nomu's body in the process. Shigaraki was furious to see his All Might killer destroyed, but when he noticed his Nomu slowly starting to move, he grinned beneath the hand covering his face. Something that Izuku had overlooked when he abandoned the Nomu inside the box. The Nomu swiftly fixed Aizawa's broken body within the invisible box, breaking it while Izuku was preoccupied trying to place his body on a makeshift gurney he had mimed. Then, with an arm extended towards Izuku's head, it charged towards the boy. Sensing that he was going to be killed, Izuku charged at him, miming a wall, but the Nomu crashed through it, grabbing Izuku by the back of his head and slamming him to the ground. Izuku swiftly mimed a safety cushion to lessen the force of the hard blow to the ground as soon as he felt the hand going around his head. Izuku was still in excruciating pain from being slammed into the ground, though. In the brief moments that passed before Izuku fell unconscious, he wondered if he could overcome this. It was really on level with All Might, and from what he recalled, even All Might could defeat all of his constructions with less than half of the power required, even with the strength of his quirk in conjunction with One for All. What chance did he have against this Nomu, if that were the case? Those observing the plaza from the main entrance couldn't help but scream in terror as they witnessed their friend being crushed to the ground by the mutant monster. Yaoyorozu was very tempted to rush down and assist, but she had to keep an eye on 13 people, and the others knew they would just cause obstructions. Mina had unintentionally let the mist villain loose when she witnessed her friend being beaten. Consequently, he was able to break free from their grip and return to Shigaraki. "No!" exclaimed Mina. The sight of their nerd's lifeless body on the ground stunned Kendo and Bakugo. The slight twitch of his body was the only clue that he was still alive. The boy was then thrown to Shigaraki by Nomu, who simply grinned at the mime powerhouse that was now in his grasp. Aizawa was furious with himself for allowing one of his students to be taken prisoner and couldn't help but sigh in agony. "Nerd!" roared a furious voice. It took Shigaraki only a few seconds to realize that a blonde boy was firing explosions in his direction. Nomu. With a slight grunt of pain, Bakugo was smacked away by Nomu as he leapt in front of his master. Luckily, Kendo was right behind him to grab hold of him with her enormous hands. Bakugo said, "Man-hands," searching for a means to regain their geek status. Panicked, Kendo exclaimed, "Bakugo, what the hell are we gonna do?" Bakugo cried, "Gonna not panic and focus on getting the nerd back." Shigaraki let out a sigh. "When will you NPCs learn? If the mime couldn't beat Nomu, then, how could you? Honestly, well, I guess I can't blame you for wanting to try. NPCs only know how to attack, even if it's useless." Kurogiri showed up next to his leader a short while later. "Ah, Kurogiri, about time you show up. Where the hell have you been?" Kurogiri answered, clearing his non-existent throat. He was mentally getting ready for the beating he knew he was going to get from the childlike leader. "I was caught up for a moment, but I am here now. So hard to come by good help. That's why I want Deku. I've seen all his videos and he has just what I need to achieve my dream for Sensei," Shigaraki said, giving the mist man a tongue click. Still wounded by the falsehoods spoken by the mimes, Kurogiri scowled at the mention of Deku the Great. "Anyway, besides getting caught, what's the status on the other brats?" "One escaped, but 13 has been taken out and is no longer able to fight." Shigaraki moaned in response to his helper's report's findings. If you weren't my getaway, I'd kill you. Would ever just keep an eye on those other brats." Shigaraki and Kurogiri turned to look at the green-haired teen who had been tossed when they heard groaning from next to him. They were shocked to see the child sitting up, massaging his head, and attempting to move his jaw, dropping blood slowly down his face covered in paint. Shigaraki mumbled, "Oh, you're awake and with no bones broken? Master will truly like you." Izuku signed, "No, jaw broke, nose fractured? Possible concussion." Shigaraki inquired, "Where are you getting these very specific signs? Do you have a pocket dimension quirk as well as your weird mime one or something?" "What do you mean you don't know? You're literally bringing out different signs to indicate what you're saying and yet you don't know how you're doing it. And how are you still conscious? Nomu shoved you into the ground pretty hard. Izuku attempted to smile at the villain, but all he could manage was a grimace. He was in excruciating pain all over his body, despite his knowledge that he shouldn't give up just yet. To Shigaraki's surprise, Izuku slowly stood up while glaring at the villain. Black and white lightning encircled his body. What the hell, kid? You're not supposed to be able to use a special move after all that. Shigaraki sighed. And you still haven't said how you survived that? Izuku smirked at the villain, his face streaming with blood. Cushion. You mimed a cushion. That's how you survived being pounded into the ground by Nomu? Shigaraki screamed. That's impossible. Grr, I will not let a mime and some NPCs beat me. Nomu, take out those extras and capture Deku. Kendo and Bakugo both swallowed, a little anxious about what lay ahead. They weren't sure they would be able to defeat the frightening beast because it appeared to be much stronger than they could handle, even with Eraserhead gone. Following his master's orders, the purple beast shot first and foremost towards Bakugo and Kendo. A massive block of ice crashed into the Nomu, hurling it across the square just as he was going to get to the two. Todoroki mocked Izuku, saying, I knew you were all talk. He then threw another block of ice at the main antagonist, who ducked out of the way to avoid it. Shigaraki exclaimed, no fair, another NPC can't enter the fray while we're already in game. Gah, Nomu, take them out already. Nomu retaliated with a screech, racing back to the battlefield. After realizing it couldn't capture the person with orange and blonde hair, he moved on to his other target. The Nomu was breaking both of Eraserhead's legs as if they were sticks before Todoroki or Izuku could respond. Aizawa tried his hardest not to let out the agonizing scream he so desperately wanted to, so as not to worry his students anymore. Once Nomu was finished, the monster moved toward Kendo and Bakugo once more. The latter unleashed a massive explosion that caused minimal to no damage to the monster. With Todoroki firing up another wall of ice as backup, both students quickly ducked out of Nomus's range. Observing the NPCs constantly avoiding his Nomu, Shigaraki concluded that they were the most annoying thing there was. Kurogiri, stop those damn extras so Nomu can get back to Deku. As you wish, Shigaraki. Kurogiri was constructing a portal beneath Kendo, Bakugo, and Todoroki before they realized it, carrying them out of the plaza. While Todoroki appears to have ended up somewhere else, Kendo and Bakugo ended up in the shipwrecked zone. Within the seismic zone, exhausted from taking on numerous villains, Kirishima scowled and said, Todoroki. Oh man, am I glad to see you. I'm in need of assistance. Seeing that there were still a few villains to eliminate, Todoroki tsked. He sent a wall of ice towards them in an instant, defeating them in a matter of seconds. Done. Kirishima trailed behind him as he started to head out of sight, searching for a route back to the plaza. Thanks man, I was here by myself, and I'm pretty sure if you didn't show up, I probably would have been taken down. Kirishima grinned. Despite the boy's encouraging words, Todoroki kept walking. The boy with the spiky hair could only frown at his classmate, thinking, tough crowd. Fucking, stupid, well-dressed extra, cough, cough, I'll slay. With a shout, Bakugo was dragged underwater. In an attempt to find Bakugo, Kendo went to the surface of the water and felt a tug on her leg. A second tug pulled her under the water, and as she was pulled beneath, she saw Bakugo engaged in combat with several villains. Unfortunately, because he was underwater, the villains had the upper hand. Seeing that Man-Hands was nowhere near him, Bakugo decided to use one of his grenades to blast the villains away from him. This strategy not only succeeded in defeating most of the villains but also injuring Bakugo. A sharp pain shot through Kendo's side, causing blood to spurt from where one of the villains had attacked. Kendo ignored the pain and concentrated on her opponents, clenching her fists to deflect the next wave of attacks from the villains coming her way, though being submerged made her movements incredibly slow. When it looked like Bakugo would be nowhere to be found and Kendo would be defeated, Tsuyu showed up and miraculously knocked out every villain in record time. After she was done, she collected a gasping Kendo who had just landed, and when she saw that Asui had already reached Bakugo, she smiled with relief. For the recording, I didn't require your pathetic assistance. As Bakugo lay on the ground clutching his wounds, he gasped. Kendo rasped, appreciative of the frog quirky girl, he means, thank you. Tsuyu remarked, I figured, ribbit. After observing her classmate's wounds, she took out the meager medical supplies she had with her and did her best to bandage them. That should stop the bleeding for now, ribbit. Since I can't really do anything now with these injuries, I hope Izuku is doing alright. Kendo winced, turning to face her boyfriend and saying, "Thank you, Asui. Call me Suyu, and you're welcome," says you. Shitty man hands. Bakugo flinched and stood up gradually. His expression changes from one of resolve to one of horror as Shigaraki's hand appears directly over it. Shigaraki smirks and says, "You're a tough one to get rid of, but I can change that right now." "Bakugo!" exclaims Kendo. Izuku watched in horror as the man with the chapped lip reached out to touch Bakugo. He motioned one of his strongest walls without even thinking to prevent the Nomu from interrupting him. He then did the same to Bakugo to ensure that Shigaraki's attack was postponed. Then, determined to get the villain away from his girlfriend and best friend, he ran towards him. "Damn Eraserhead, you really are cool. Face bashed up, body broken, and yet you still managed to stop me from killing this kid. And you Deku, not only did you stop Nomu from attacking you, but you mimed a wall in front of me. Man, your quirk is amazing," Shigaraki exclaimed with delight. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief and gave thanks to the gods above for sending him a teacher such as Eraserhead. Furthermore, Izuku became enraged upon witnessing his best friend and girlfriend in such a state, even though he would normally be happy to receive praise. Sad face Izuku displayed a furious expression as lightning flashed around his body in black and white. Shigaraki smirked and said, "Oh, you seem a little angry, Deku. Well, this was fun, but seeing as it seems All Might is a no-show, I think we'll just finish off you lower NPCs. Nomu kill them, now." But before Nomu could even strike someone, Izuku was flying in Nomu's direction, radiating death intent from the mime. Izuku smirked as the monster's head was quickly severed with a sword. The sight of the dead Nomu falling to its knees in front of them was so shocking that nobody could speak. Shigaraki was astounded by the success of the mime. His unconquerable creation met its demise in front of him. Kendo and the others were stunned that the perpetually cheerful and non-angry mime had actually done such a thing. What the hell? No fair, you can't do that. Izuku had decided it would be best to have Suyu take Bakugo and the others up to the plaza and away from here while Shigaraki was having a fit. Decapitated, he hoped that wasn't the case, but with Shigaraki now insane and the Nomu potentially still active, Izuku didn't know what would happen next. "Hey, I think Deku is trying to tell us something, Ribbit." When Kendo turned to face her boyfriend, she saw him gesture first to Eraserhead and then to the plaza before walking away and signing. She detested his desire for them to remove Eraserhead and themselves from this battle, but he was correct. They were hurt and not really helpful to him. "He wants us to leave and take Aizawa-sensei to the plaza, out of danger," she murmured. "Fuck that, I'm stay." Kabuko attempted, but gave up when he saw Kendo give him a glare. He was aware that, despite his wounds, he would only get in the way. Besides, the nerd had already taken out the Nomu, and the Shigaraki guy was acting out, so it was the ideal moment to flee. They left the plaza and ascended the stairs to the USJ entrance in a matter of minutes. Shigaraki cried, "Fuck, fuck, no fair." Izuku was shocked to see that the villain was still having fits. The mist dude shrugged when he turned to face him. Shigaraki was still furious that his creation had died, but he had had enough and decided it was time to get revenge on the stupid mime boy who had destroyed his plans. In the meantime, Izuku thought it would be wise to turn his back on the villainous leader guy in order to contain the remnants of Nomus. Shigaraki had mentioned that the Nomu had regeneration, so Izuku reasoned that it could only do so if it could reunite its body parts. Had Izuku recalled All Might's advice to maintain constant vigilance, the day would have concluded with success. Izuku exclaimed, "Hot damn, I just killed a man. Monster man?" As he reviewed his work. Izuku didn't really regret what he did, but he knew that killing the man-bird monster wouldn't get him away with it either. Even though Izuku knew he would be punished once they returned to school, he still managed to smile and turned to give his girlfriend and Bakugo a thumbs up at the plaza entrance. He was a little perplexed as to why they were pointing behind him and looking horrified. Izuku turned to see what they were trying to show him and signed, "Huh." It took Izuku only a few seconds to realize that an excruciating pain had surfaced on his back when Shigaraki materialized in front of him, squeezing him tightly to his chest and placing a flat palm on the mime's back. The masked villain whispered into the boy's ears, "Gotcha Deku. Don't worry, I'm not gonna kill ya. I just want to weaken ya enough so we can take ya to sensei and he can play with ya." Never will one forget the resident mime's agonized cries as the League of Villain leader tore through their classmates' body armor, eventually reaching their bare back. Blood eventually started to run quickly down Izuku's back, where his skin was being ripped apart. Izuku's body went into shock as the excruciating pain in his back got worse. No matter how much he wanted to be able to construct something, nothing materialized. Izuku was unable to try and create anything helpful to help him break free from Shigaraki's hold because his mind was too preoccupied with the pain that was happening to his body. As Bakugo and Kendo watched in horror, their best friend was falling apart. Bakugo cursed himself for being unable to reach that location and assist. The fact that he allowed himself to be hurt at the shipwreck zone only served to aggravate him further. When Mina and Yaoyorozu noticed Kendo attempting to run toward the plaza, they had to stop her. She yelled at her friends to let her go, ignoring the fact that her side was still bleeding. She exclaimed, "Leave me alone. Izuku needs me." With tears welling up in their eyes, Mina and Yaoyorozu could only close their eyes and express their regret for having to prevent their friend from seeing her boyfriend. "Kendo, if you go down there then you'll just get hurt too," Mina broke down. "So, what, we just let him die?" Boom. Everyone turned to face All Might, who was not grinning, and exclaimed, "Have no fear, for I am here." They could only sneer at the late arriving hero, though. All Might had assumed that even though he had arrived late, everything would still be okay, but he realized he was mistaken as soon as he heard his young successor cry out in agony. Shigaraki had halted in Deku's disintegration, letting the mime land face first on his lap, pooling blood around the immature mime. Shigaraki was relieved to see the hero, but he was also disappointed that his Nomu wasn't present to oppose him. Even though he really wanted to kill the top hero, in the end he had no choice but to back down now that he was present. Shigaraki smiled and grabbed the mime by his collar, saying, "Well, we didn't get our objective done, but at least we got Deku. Bring us home, Kurogiri." "Very well." When Shigaraki turned to say a few last words, something he would always regret, he was halfway through the portal with Deku. "I hope for better luck the next time." Shigaraki was about to conclude his farewell speech when the antagonist was shot. Every shot striking its target squarely. Gah! Just before Izuku fell back into the portal, the villain dropped Izuku due to the bullets that hit Shigaraki. Thankfully, All Might moved quickly to capture the young mime before Kurogiri could attempt to send him back to their base via teleportation. He then leapt away from the pair to keep Izuku safe from the villain's grasp. "Shit!" Shigaraki exclaimed as he turned to see him bleeding profusely from his wounds while lying on their bar's floor. "I was so close to getting Deku for Sensei." Kurogiri attended to the young man's wounds and said, "If you are truly that set on having Deku perform for Sensei's birthday, then perhaps it would just be easier to request him?" "Tisk. I guess, but I just figured this would have been faster." When he saw his successor being wheeled off to the hospital on a gurney, All Might scowled. It was a horrific scene that should never have happened. The sight of so much blood seeping through the young child's clothes and down his back, and it only served to highlight how careless he was being today. He doesn't know if he will ever be able to forgive himself for nearly ending a life. With a sigh of relief, All Might turned to face the other students, who had only minor cuts and bruises on them. His gaze fell on young Bakugo, Kendo, and Aizawa, and once more his relief was overtaken by guilt. Since they were the ones with the most injuries, the three were being transported to Recovery Girl for medical attention. Even so, it appeared that Kendo was asking to visit the hospital where Izuku was being treated rather than going. "Young love?" Kirishima questioned. All Might, I was wondering where Izuku went." Todoroki stood sternly by his side. After all the fighting was over, Todoroki and Kirishima eventually surfaced, defeating every villain that had been left in the other zones, which also helped to explain why it had taken them so long to return to the plaza. The top hero turned to face the 1A students, then realized that one of them was one of the fans of Izuku he had heard about. Such devoted followers, one might quip. "Ah, well, Izuku's injuries were quite severe compared to your fellow classmates, and although Recovery Girl did her best to heal him, he still required a lot more medical help. He was taken straight to Musutafu General Hospital where he'll be getting the best care there." Despite how strange Izuku was, the mime boy still saved all of 1A and 1B's lives at the expense of his own, causing them to all exhale in relief. In silence, Bakugo and Kendo sat upright in their separate hospital beds at UA. The explosives user had his arms covered in bandages, and there appeared to be a scar on his cheek from shrapnel that burst from his own arm grenades. While Kendo's side was now covered in a compression wrap to ease any residual pain, her two fists were still bandaged. Both of them knew they were experiencing the same exact guilt for not being there for Izuku, even though they had been assured they had nothing to do with Izuku's injuries. They were so unhappy with themselves that there were no adequate words to describe their feelings, and being in the dark about his health situation made them feel even worse. A few hours later, All Might entered this same scene, saddened to see two young, promising heroes appear so defeated. 2 days had passed since the USJ break-in, and nobody seemed to be recovered. Their perilous encounter with villains seemed even more real when they noticed the class mime was missing from his seat. Some people were still plagued by the memory of Izuku's piercing scream. They all took their seats, realizing that their sensei would likely start class soon, assuming Aizawa showed up at all. After just a short while, they were taken aback to discover Aizawa, who was limping and wearing bandages. Kirishima questioned, "Shouldn't you still be in the hospital?" Among all the injuries, his was arguably the second worst. Following him are injuries from Kendo and Baku Bro. Aizawa declared, "My injuries won't stop me from teaching. Also, I have an announcement for you all. The sports festival will be taking place in 2 weeks." Kaminari exclaimed, "Even though we were just attacked by villains. And what about Midoriya, is he even gonna be here for the event?" The idea of their resident mime missing such a significant occasion sent the entire class into a frenzy. One of their classmates practically gave his life for them, but he would still be left out of one of the most thrilling and visually stunning school events. It was unfair to them in a number of ways. Aizawa sighed. He was expecting this kind of response to the news, but it was still nonsensical. "The school is upping security this year. We need to show the people of Japan that we are still standing strong despite the invasion of the USJ. At least, that's why Nezu decided that the sports festival is still being held," explained Aizawa. "After today you will have the next 2 weeks for training. Use this time wisely." Bakugo yelled, "What about the damn nerd?" He was practically enraged that he wouldn't be able to defeat his opponent and demonstrate his superior strength. Aizawa would snatch at the tip of his nose in frustration if he could. "Look, I won't sugarcoat it. Izuku saved us all at the USJ, yes, but he also ended up critically injured. I've received updates from the hospital and for now, it looks like Izuku will not be participating in the sports festival." That news sent the entire class into a frenzy. After everything he went through, the mime only had right to be included in this event. Aizawa's injuries had left him exhausted, and these kids weren't helping him feel better. He proceeded with his speech, using his eccentricity to silence his students. "Look, even if Izuku doesn't recover in time for the school event, he already has numerous drafts from heroes coming in. Izuku needn't worry about making a splash at the sports festival. He's done that enough with his mime crap," Aizawa grumbled. Kaminari questioned, "Wait, seriously? Midoriya has heroes requesting him already?" Kirishima became alert the moment he mentioned his miming. "Well, that's no surprise," he exclaims, his sadness over Izuku's potential lack of participation fading. "You guys have never seen Deku the Great Escape 6 pros, have ya?" Except for Tsuyu, Bakugo, and, shockingly, Mineta, the entire class shook their heads. Zero said, what did he do?" Aizawa interrupted, "Nothing, he did nothing at all." When Kirishima turned to face his sensei, he was met with a stern look that threatened to expel him immediately if he showed anyone the video. Well, it wasn't much actually it's not that big a deal now that I think about it," Kirishima replied. The class dismissed the boys' hardening demeanor despite their skeptical glances. With the exception of sporadic worries about their mime friend, the class continued with their day after that. For the most part, they were thinking about how they were going to prepare for the sports festival. Following class, Bakugo began to stomp toward his next class, but he stopped at the door. He was already upset that his rival was not included in the sports festival, but these extras made his anger even more intense. A group of students blocked the way into the classroom, with a lavender-haired person at the front glaring at everyone. Bakugo snarled, the boy grinning, "What the hell do you want?" "So, this is the famous Class 1A? Seems like you're just a bunch of wannabes who are taking advantage of the publicity from the USJ attack," the kid replied. The boy's remark infuriated the entire class, but Bakugo was the most enraged. 1. "Don't waste my time extra. What the hell do you want?" "All I want is to see the competition this year. They say if the teachers are impressed enough, they'll exchange students in general ed into the hero course. I'm making a declaration of war with you, 1A. I will make my way to the hero course, even if I have to kick your explosive ass to do it," Shinso Hitoshi, the boy, said. 2. "Then again, maybe I won't have to since I heard what happened to that weird kid with the mime hobby. From what I've heard, his spot has practically opened up in 1A. 3. Bakugo snarled and grabbed the boy who appeared to be sleep-deprived by the collar of his shirt. As Bakugo threw the now afraid boy to the ground and menacingly stepped over him, he said, "Listen here, you fucking extra. You ain't getting into the hero course, not with that fucking attitude." Second, that spot in 1A, it's reserved for Deku, so don't even think you're gonna get it. And lastly, speaking again, I accept your declaration. Looking at your noodle-like body, I can already tell you won't be much competition. Remember the name Bakugo Katsuki, because I'm the one who's gonna win the sports festival, and keep you out of ever joining the hero class. With a swallow, Shinso observed the fiery blonde storm out, with the remainder of Class 1A trailing closely behind. He rose slowly and glanced up at the girl with the orange hair who was staring at him. He thought there were several other 1B hero course students standing behind him. Hey, getting up and dusting himself off, he said. Kendo stated bluntly, Bakugo's right. If you think like that, you aren't hero material at all. Knowing that the boy needed to hear this if he genuinely wanted to be a hero student, Kendo ignored Shinso's slight wince and carried on with her speech. Without saying anything more, Kendo left, leaving Shinso staring at the girl with her mouth hanging open. That spot in 1A you think you can easily take. It belongs to my boyfriend who almost died saving us during the break-in at the USJ. He has the heart of a hero despite how dumb he is, so don't think for a second even if you do manage to miraculously win the sport festival, you'll get his spot. A few students from 1B lingered behind, feeling a little sorry for the general education student who had been verbally attacked. They hoped it wasn't his fault that he appeared to have such a large ego. Tetsu approached the general education student, patting his back and looking down. Big sis is just worried about her boyfriend. Don't take her words too serious. Shinso said, so, I could take her boyfriend's spot? As she passed by, the other hero student with Tetsu laughed and patted his shoulder, saying, not likely. Shinso remained in the hallway until lunch was over, becoming even angrier and more determined to defeat classes 1A and 1B as a result of their interactions with him. And he knew he had the upper hand because they were unaware of his peculiarity. He'd enroll in the course for heroes. Within the educator's lounge, do we have any updates on young mime Doria? All Might inquired, not realizing his error. Aizawa let out a sigh of fatigue, unfortunately not. Despite getting some of the best doctors in the country by request of the #1 hero, Midoriya's injuries aren't healing. All Might couldn't help but run a hand over his weary face. He had vowed to focus more on UA and regretted ever missing the USJ field trip after seeing his successor's bloodied body. His reign as the world's greatest hero was coming to an end. I am completely to blame, if I had been there. Aizawa concurred, saying, Izuku probably wouldn't be in this position, but he might still be due to other circumstances. Izuku was a total wildcard during that fight, and it pains me to admit that after I was taken out, Izuku was our only chance to save everyone. Although what he did was careless, it also saved Vlad's entire class and his own. Since All Might usually only had complaints about Izuku being a little menace to society or never really demonstrating his true potential, All Might looked to Aizawa surprised at the kind words he had for Izuku. That damn kid can truly embody what it means to be a hero when he wants to, Aizawa sighed. As much as I hate his devil-may-care attitude, the troubled child deserved what he was about to say. Hearing Aizawa speak so passionately about Izuku was heartwarming, albeit a little shocking, and it seemed 1A's teacher knew that too, because a few minutes later he was threatening All Might not to reveal what he said to the damn mime when he returned to school, because he would be returning. All Might did nothing to stop the smile from appearing on his face. All Might laughed, I knew you liked the nerdy mime. Aizawa whispered, he has potential. When Izuku first woke up, he wasn't sure where he was, but he knew it wasn't in the world of the living. Ow, am I really dead? Izuku moaned, and as he looked around, he noticed that everything was completely dark save for a few vibrant shadows that were lingering in front of him. Hold on, just give it another minute. Well, who are these guys? Before Izuku, the shadows shook their heads at the boy. Not able to tell me? Izuku stroked his chin in a sage-like manner as they nodded and extended a hand to him. I understand, but I'm not ready to hear. Instead, it's not yet appropriate for me to know. At minimum, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Izuku Midoriya, and I plan to become the world's best mime. The boy received a silent applause from the shadows for his resolve, but they also threw their heads back at him, seemingly to remind him of his other objective. Izuku changed his earlier statement after pausing in reflection to observe their intense gaze on him, as if Kendo had hit him in the face. I apologize. Izuku Midoriya, the world's next greatest hero, mime, is who I am. The shadows gave a nod of approval and then clapped silently once more. Though I don't know you all, you seem like cool people. Do you know why I am here, then? Izuku inquired. Izuku struck up a one-way conversation with the shadows, with whom he discovered a kind of kinship, but they would not elaborate further. Yes, and that's why I used one for all to push my teacher aside and stop the bird's beak from trying to harm my teachers. Then I gave it my peculiar mime touch and began fighting the birdman, Izuku exclaimed, gesturing to the quiet shadows in front of him. Yes, Toshinori had picked a fine, if eccentric, successor. From what their successor had described, the Nomu was made to best all might, and yet the boy stood up to it with no hesitation. The several shadows in front of Izuku applauded silently in admiration of the boy's bravery. If it were anyone else, they were certain they would flee from the Nomu. Izuku didn't know how long he'd been gone from this place, but he found that his company was cool, so it didn't bother him. However, as he was about to tell another story, he noticed that the shadows in front of him were bidding the mime boy farewell, and in what he could only assume was mime, they were wishing him luck. Ah, many thanks to all of you. Until our next meeting, Aga. And Izuku's world became black once more, a week prior. When Yue called Inko Midoriya, she assumed it was about Izuku acting like a little dick once more. When she learned that her son had been hurt in a villain attack that had happened at his school during a school-sponsored event, she had no idea she would go into a panic attack. Her concerns were exacerbated when she learned that he was being admitted to the hospital where she worked. Was her baby's injury severe enough to require a trip to the hospital? Izuku! Exclaimed Inko. Inko! What's going on? Inquired one of the head nurses. She sobbed, almost on the verge of a panic attack. My son, villain attack injured here. The head nurse started looking for any new patients within the last hour as soon as he heard his colleague mention that her son had been involved in a villain attack. When the head nurse saw the comprehensive details provided for the name of Inko's geeky little son, she gasped. He turned to face Inko, who was pale, and gave her all the information he could about her son's situation. Inko. Your son's in the ICU, whatever that villain did damaged his body badly. Even with the assistance of Recovery Girl, it seems that your son suffered extreme damage to the nerves in his back, a broken jaw, and a mild concussion. The doctors are doing what they can to try and fix it to the best of their ability, but Inko, your son's mime career may be cut short, he said with sadness. It was well known that the eccentric son of Inko had dreams of becoming a mime. It was very cute, especially when Izuku came to perform for the doctors and nurses during their lunch breaks. Inko gasped at what her coworkers had said, feeling her knees give way beneath her. She was aware that what she was doing was unprofessional, but her baby was hurt and in the damn ICU. She was devastated to learn that his hero and miming careers might have ended before they even got started. This was her baby's dream, and she knew he would be devastated to learn that it might not come true. When Yuka Shimano offered to let his children accompany him on a visit to Musutafu General Hospital, he didn't think that Katsuma and Mahoro would actually show up, but it seemed that they despised his frequent absences from them just as much as he did. Having his kids with him was somewhat refreshing, though, and considering how well behaved they were, he felt compelled to allow them to accompany him on business trips more frequently. Ah, Dr. Shimano. We forgot you were coming today. We hope you don't mind, but we'll need to reschedule your meeting. Dr. Miyako is busy now. The nurse clarified. When Yuka noticed he was receiving no further explanation, he asked, Oh, I thought Dr. Miyako didn't have any surgeries going on today? Ah, yes, well, that was the case until a student from UA came in with severe injuries from a villain attack. We're currently trying to see if there's any way we can fix the damage left over. How unfortunate. I shall leave you to your task then, and wish you luck in your endeavor, Yuka said with sadness. The older man was saddened that a teen had suffered such serious injuries. Daddy, what's going on? I thought we were gonna see how you worked, Katsuma responded. Mahoro answered, Yeah, why are we leaving so soon? The father of two smiled and steered himself and his children towards the exit, saying, Ah, you will. It just seems like it won't be today. Something came up, you see. After a few minutes, Yuka finally met the exact surgeon she had been hoping to see emerge from Izuku's surgery. As soon as he saw Yuka, the man was told to wait. Ignoring confused looks directed at him, the surgeon yelled, Wait, Dr. Shimino, please wait. With a smile, Yuka turned back to face his colleague and started walking back to the surgeon. Ah, Dr. Miyako. Good to see you. I've been told our meeting is postponed to another day. Yes, apologies, but as I'm sure they told you, something urgent came up. However, that's not what I wanted to talk to you about. Dr. Shimino, your quirk. I remember reading an article that said you could heal people with it. Is it true? He urgently asked. The physician on the island gave a nod. Indeed, but our patient, a young teen barely starting high school, needs medical attention and your quirk might be the only answer. Please, if you can help we'd very much appreciate it. Yuka asked, uncertainly, I see. May I ask what his blood type is then? As she turned to face the surgeon. The physician examined their charts and said, it says he has type OY. Yuka let out a deep breath. While I want nothing more to help, I can only heal those with type A. My quirk is useless otherwise. I'm sorry, as much as I would like to help I can't. The surgeons' faces fell upon learning that the boy lying in their intensive care unit had even less chance of making a full recovery. The surgeon said, downtrodden, I see. Well, thank you for your time. Oh, and please speak to one of our nurses to discuss the best time to reschedule our meeting. As he turned to leave, Shimano said, of course, I truly am sorry. Seeing the exhausted expression on their coworker's face, a nurse approached the doctor and said, Sir, perhaps we could contact. Katsuma exclaimed, Daddy, wait, remember my quirk? I can heal people too. With joy. Helping the doctors save someone seemed like a great place to start for someone who aspired to be a hero when he grew up. The boy was regarded as the greatest hero by the surgeon and the other medical professionals. Katsuma, your quirk has barely shown up, you don't know if it'll even work. Yuka responded. Please Dr. Shimino, not only is this at the #1 hero's request, but he saved his entire class as well as his teachers. If there is any way you could help save this boy's life, then please. Yuka sighed. Although he didn't want to put his son under such pressure, he knew it would be impolite to turn down a request like that from the world's greatest hero. Well, where's the boy? Izuku's mother entered his room while he was still asleep, having just recovered from surgery. Not a trace of life other than shallow, short breaths. Her son used to have a goofy smile on his face when he was about to get into trouble, but these days, she couldn't even see anything save his heart monitors beeping to tell her that he was okay. He hadn't woken up despite spending the last week in and out of the hospital for surgery. His wounds were simply too deep. At the sight of the pale teen, with bruises all over his face and jaw and a fresh scar beneath his right eye, tears streamed down her face. As if she needed more reason to have a heart attack, the school had revealed that it was most likely from when he had his face smashed into the ground. Inko sniffled, oh, my poor baby. You truly are a hero, Izuku. Ah, Gomansai. We didn't realize Midoriya had visitors. Leaping from her chair, Inko wiped her face quickly to get rid of the tears. Perplexed by the man's appearance, Inko asked, and no, it's alright. How do you know Izuku? She was shocked when the man just laughed and waved his hands. The man grinned and said, Goman, but I don't actually know Midoriya. Inko deadpanned, then why are you here? The small child, who was barely noticed by Inko, cheered, my quirk. Your quirk? At last, the physician assisting Izuku entered to introduce himself and the others. Mrs. Midoriya. Apologies for just barging in, but you'll be happy to know we might have found a way to help heal Midoriya. Inko's eyes started to well up with tears. After learning that her son had almost lost everything, hearing those remarks from her son's physician was a blessing. She muttered, Really? This man here is Dr. Shimano. And he's not that important right now. Who is this little kid right here? The physician's older brother grinned. Confusion gripped Inko. She turned to face the 3 visitors to her son's hospital room. She didn't want to start thanking people until she had more information. The doctor grinned and said, right, well, Kastuma-chan's quirk here is quite the heroic one. He has the ability to fully heal a person, no matter the injury. After the doctor's words, Inko gasped and turned to face the little child, who was still grinning broadly at the elderly woman. The doctor concluded, and it has no drawbacks. None at all really. Indeed, unlike recovery girls who uses a person's stamina to heal, which in part is why she was unable to fully heal Midoriya given he had practically no stamina left in him, Katsuma does not. If Katsuma is successful in this endeavor, then Izuku can very well go back to training to be a hero, and mime. At the doctor's admission, Inko remained silent and instead looked at her son, who was still unconscious from the medication the hospital had given him, and then at the young child who was willing to use their peculiarity on her son. When the tears finally started, Inko couldn't help but give the little boy a thank you bow. She exclaimed, Thank you so much, I'm glad to know that you'll be the reason Izuku can once more realize his dreams. After blushing at the compliment, Katsuma felt a tap on his back and turned to see his sister pointing at the unconscious boy in the bed. Stop doing nothing and heal the green-haired kid, she screamed. Oh, that's right. His first step toward becoming a hero began when he stammered and hurried to Izuku's side. Turning to face his father and sister, he saw both of them smile encouragingly, giving him the confidence to start healing Midoriya. Right now, and it's finished. Breathless, Katsuma exhaled. He had done everything he could to treat Izuku's wounds. It had taken longer than anticipated, but for someone as young as him, he had performed far better than anyone had anticipated. It took him about a week to heal the teenager completely because he had to take frequent breaks, never having fully trained his quirk, and relying solely on his father's teachings. Nevertheless, he had finally completed his mission. Izuku remained in his coma-like state at first, and everyone was delighted when the mime boy gasped in awakening. Izuku had assumed he was dead from the sheer amount of white that surrounded him, but a quick glance around revealed that the shadows that had accompanied him in that black void were no longer there. Instead, his mother, two small children, and an unidentified man were watching him. Izuku glanced at his mother, then the children, then his mother once more, and finally, his mother once more. How long had I been gone when my mother remarried, got divorced, and had two children? With his throat still sore from not using it for so long, Izuku thought. Izuku, my darling. After seeing Izuku moving around, Inko sobbed and gave her son an affectionate smack upside the head. The Shimano family was taken aback by the mother's behavior, but they surmised that since Izuku was laughing, it must be something they both do. And for the record, you've been out for about 2 weeks. No, I did not divorce your father, nor did I get remarried, or have 2 kids, you little shit. Izuku growled, sorcery. Inko deadpanned, no, your facial expressions tell all. She bowed to the youngest member of the family, and when she turned around, shocked expressions met her eyes. Thank you so much, Katsuma-chan. Izuku saw his mother in such distress and had to inquire as to what was going on, but now that he was awake, he was unable to recall anything that had happened, even though he had remembered speaking to those shadows. Honey, you were so hurt from the attack at the USJ, your hero, and mime career was almost gone. Izuku gasped at the thought of what might have been. He was shocked that he had been absent for 2 weeks and that he would have to make up for the amount of schoolwork he had missed. He honestly couldn't imagine a world in which he didn't mime. It hurt to know that was almost a possibility. I'll just copy Kachan. Fortunately, Katsuma arrived at the same moment as you, allowing him to use his peculiarity to heal you. It was a remarkable coincidence. Izuku turned to face the 3 strangers, and the smallest one, who he assumed to be Katsuma, came forward to say hello. Hello, my name is Katsuma Shimano. I was informed that you were undergoing hero training. When I grow up, I also want to be a hero. I look forward to your debut, Izuku rasped as she stared at the little boy who had saved his life and ruffled his hair. Katsuma's eyes lit up at the teenager's comments. Everyone, except for his father, told him to go for a different career, like a doctor, because of his eccentricity rather than thinking he could be a hero. Is it truly possible for me to be a hero? Izuku laughed at Katsuma's enthusiasm and took a big gulp of water before continuing, of course. In my eyes, you're already a hero. My hero, Izuku yelled, because you've already done the most heroic thing a hero can do, practically saving my life. The youngest Shimino grinned broadly before leaping to embrace Izuku, who tried not to show his pain even though he was completely recovered. Then I won't disappoint you, I'll be history's greatest hero. Aizawa was in the middle of grading tests when he got a call out of the blue. At first, he was irritated that Hizashi was interrupting him to tell him about a new podcast, but when he looked at it and realized it was the hospital where his troubled child had been staying for the previous 2 weeks, his blood turned cold. Aizawa answered his phone unsteadily, praying, there's no reason they would be calling me. Unless. No, not problem, child. Please, he was an annoying little shit, but please no. Greetings. Hello. Is this Eraserhead? I guess? Was that, I think, the teacher of Izuku Midoriya? A soft, feminine voice inquired. Yes, may I ask what this call is in regards to too? Aizawa gulped. Yes. Well, as you know, Midoriya-san's injuries were far more severed than we had assumed they were, despite Recovery Girl's assistance. Aizawa nodded, forgetting about the doctor or nurse. He grunted in affirmation, not knowing who he was speaking to or being able to see. And even with the fullest efforts of our physicians and surgeons to treat Midoriya-san's injuries, it was insufficient. Although Midoriya's situation did not appear favorable, a meeting. He practically sacrificed his life for the sake of his classmates and his teachers, who were pros for God's sake. He practically drowned out all other words coming from the person on the other end of the phone. Aizawa could only feel guilty at the thought that the annoying problem child could no longer be a hero, or even a mime. And Midoriya-san, the son of Mr. Shimano, made a full recovery in just the last week. Amazing, huh? These papers will just have to wait another day to be graded. It's like a record scratching. Aizawa had to have the nurse, doctor, whoever back up and repeat pretty much the entire conversation he had drowned out. A crushing weight lifting off his shoulders as he finds out. Mr. Shimano's son, whoever that is, saved his student, but visiting was only for immediate family members. I'll be there in 10. Sir, I just told you only family can visit. Aizawa grounded out, I'm his uncle, see you in 10. The nurse who had conversed with Aizawa turned to face her colleague after hanging up, saying, this Izuku Midoriya is getting taught by his uncle, imagine all the special treatment he gets. Is this a sign that class is over? After witnessing their homeroom teacher storm out of the classroom without saying anything to them, Kaminari questioned. I have to attend to some important business, so please make way and move. It appeared as though the world's greatest hero was in a hurry to get somewhere today and no one was going to stop him, as throngs of fans watched in disbelief as he zipped past them without even pausing for photos or a few autographs. All Might had reported he would be coming over for a visit as soon as he had received a call from the hospital his successor was staying at, saying he was all better and awake. Despite being informed that visiting was restricted to family members and that not even the greatest hero could receive special treatment, All Might still hurried to get over. I'm his dad. Why did I say that? *T. I believe that Inko's spouse was in the United States for work. The same nurse, thinking Aizawa was Izuku's uncle, said. The doors to Izuku's room suddenly opened as he was being helped into a stretch by his mother. Despite being healed, he was still extremely sore. And he was left speechless, staring wide-eyed at his mentor and teacher who were standing in front of him, both of them red-faced and yelling at him. Are you? I completed everything, all right, so now? Problem child, never carry that out again. You may be strong, but, my boy, even the strongest people have their limits. To their surprise, All Might and Aizawa both finished. They couldn't believe they had to deliver the same lecture to Izuku, who couldn't believe All Might and his homeroom teacher were there. Izuku nodded, looking away a little shy of the concern he knew he had caused, and he apologized for everything. Sorry Aizawa-sensei, All Might, I'll be more careful next time. Eyeing the scar on his cheek, Aizawa gave the troublesome child a tisk and said, there won't be a next time, but thank you for your assistance, Midoriya. Vlad and I, along with your class, we're all saved. We owe you a good deal, the instructor remarked. Izuku gave himself a quick scratch on the back of his head and said, no, I was just doing what a hero would do, dismissing his sensei's demand for payment. Young Midoriya, I couldn't be more proud of you. You really deserve to be the next big thing, All Might exclaimed with pride. Before the three moved on to what he had missed while unconscious, Izuku couldn't help but feel his chest fill with pride. They couldn't help but laugh at his concern that someone was stealing his street corner. You understand that the sporting event is taking place on Monday and that you haven't trained at all for it, correct? That's in 3 days, Aizawa said frank. Izuku shrugged, thinking that, all things considered, his hospital pudding, along with All Might's, was pretty good. To be honest, am I really up against anyone? Izuku said, sounding sincere rather than arrogant. Aizawa detested the fact that the boy was correct and that nobody could really compete with the damn mime boy, even in 1A and 1B, despite having strong opponents. With a simple sigh, Aizawa bid farewell to the mysterious Izuku Midoriya, saying, whatever you do, please don't get killed before the festival. Izuku gave the go-ahead to transition to mime mode. Aizawa left his room with a loud groan, leaving All Might and Inko to giggle at the homeroom teacher. All Might had to give the younger boy a little ruffle for his return, knowing that he could no longer be careless and fight small-time crimes after school. For now, All Might would dedicate all of his time that he had left for Izuku, the least he could do to atone for what he had done, or rather, not done. All Might gave Izuku a hug as visiting hours drew to an end, letting the teenager know he was pleased with his recuperation and eager for him to return to school. And when you return for the sports festival Mime Doria, make sure you tell everybody, I am here, All Might grinned. Yes, I will. Izuku grinned, returning to the UA. Midnight had stepped in to cover for Aizawa while he was away. After learning that he was returning, she left the kids on her own, knowing that in a short while, their sadness over their mime friend would subside. Yaoyorozu missed Izuku's constant attempts to impose a rule that required every student in 1A to wear face paint during at least one class period and be limited to miming their actions. She still recalls the day he nearly talked her into it by telling her that it would help everyone learn how to communicate through gestures. Everyone was still depressed over the absence of their resident mime. Kirishima had been visiting every street corner Deku the Great was known to occupy on a daily basis for the past week and discovered that the mime was still missing. True, all of the 1A members missed Izuku in different ways and for different reasons. It didn't help that they were going to take part in the sports festival without the mime. It was a big event, and the person who had saved all of their lives wouldn't get to attend. However, Bakugo was the one who was most upset about Izuku's absence because he really wanted to defeat Izuku in person. When Aizawa returned from wherever he had gone, the kids were still talking, mostly about nothing, but those in 1A who knew him noticed a little skip in his step. To be honest, it was a little unsettling. Aizawa declared, "Listen up brats, I have some good news." In anticipation of their sensei's news, everyone turned to face one another. What could be so good that even he could look so happy, unless a man with a peculiar healing ability was miraculously visiting Musutafu Hospital. And although his quirk was pretty much useless, his son's quirk was identical to his and could heal all of Izuku's wounds. Izuku has been declared officially recovered as of this evening. Aizawa's news was met with silence, but in a matter of seconds, everyone in 1A burst into joyful cheers. Yeah, Izubro will return, had a feeling he wouldn't give up easily. I'm eager for his sarcasm to return to the classroom. Deku the Legendary returns. Normally, Aizawa would threaten to expel his students for being so noisy, but today was different. For once, he gave them free rein to act as unruly as they pleased. Wham! As Aizawa turned to see what had created such a commotion, he witnessed his class door hanging off its hinges and all of 1B barging in to celebrate the news with 1A. You. 1. Oh, were you aware? Deku is returning. Tetsu cried out. We can give him a kicking in the sporting event, Awase applauded. For Kendo, we can watch him act like a moron, Setsuna exclaimed, much to Kendo's shame. Grinning and wishing both classes well on their friend's recuperation, Vlad entered 1A's class. Today, let's go to Izuku, Kirishima cried out. Yes. Even though Aizawa hated what he was going to say, he had to break the news to them. You can't. What? Everybody screamed. Even after being healed, Izuku is still sensitive, so they are currently only allowing family members to see him. But fear not, he ought to be freed prior to the athletic event. Even though 1A and 1B were unhappy with what their sensei had said, they were nevertheless glad that Izuku would be participating in the sporting event. You do realize that even if he did come dangerously close to death, he will still revert to his previous state of being a little shit? Vlad chuckled. As long as the kids are alive, I can live with that. I hope, Aizawa shrugged. Following school, it was a good thing that only family members could visit Izuku because Bakugo didn't even feel like the nerd's friend right now. It had been nearly 2 weeks since he had seen his best friend, and Bakugo only grew more worried for his friend. Even after his sensei revealed that the damn nerd was now fully recovered. How am I going to confront that fucking nerd when he returns, knowing that I fucked him and allowed him to get hurt like that? Bakugo practically sobbed. He could not get over the fact that his friend was in the hospital in critical condition while he was out here with minor bruising and a small scar on his cheek. Bakugo was told multiple times that he was not at fault for what had happened and that he could not have prevented it, especially given his injuries. His words were, fuck. Damn Deku. Kendo sighed, you know, Izuku wouldn't want you to be beating yourself up over what happened. Like Bakugo, she felt terrible that she was barely hurt while her boyfriend was still in the hospital. Perhaps he would have been by their side if she had been stronger and hadn't hurt herself. Yeah, and just how ignorant are you, man hands? To Kendo's surprise, Bakugo snarled and did not try to hide the tears in his eyes. I'm sure I have the exact same emotions as you do, Kendo concluded, her voice cracking at the end of her impassioned speech. I know he's my boyfriend whom I love and right before my eyes he was almost killed and I stood by watching as it happened. Bakugo shook his head at the idea, mocking the girl, whatever. You had a huge fucking hole in your side, what use were you going to be? Bakugo stared at the big fist user in surprise. He knew the two nerds liked each other, but loving each other was a whole other thing. Bakugo complained as he wiped away his tears. Following her passionate speech, Kendo snapped back, tears streaming down her face, the same amount you would have been with that slash down your torso. Stop beating yourself up for something out of your control, Bakugo. While the two teenagers laughed and looked at one another, Bakugo suddenly composed himself to ask a question that had been on his mind. Will I ever get the hell out of Deku? Even though she knew only family could see Izuku, maybe they would make an exception for his girlfriend and best friend. Kendo rolled her eyes at the surprisingly sensitive blonde. You don't even need to ask. She smiled, then got up from her spot and started to lead the way to the hospital where their best friend was. Without noticing Bakugo's slight smile, she spoke over her shoulder. The first thing he'll do is toss a sign at you with a smiley face. The Shimano family unexpectedly dropped by to check on Izuku in the middle of the evening, just to make sure there were no lasting effects from Katsuma's eccentricity. Which, happily, there weren't, since the hospital had granted the family's request because they had been the ones who had saved the teen's life. We have to part ways. As happy as I am that you, Midoriya-san, have fully recovered. We have to return home since we've finished our business here. Shimano smiled at the small child lying in his hospital bed. The boy was supposed to be discharged in a few hours after the doctor checked on him, but for the time being, he was instructed to stay in bed and rest. Of course, once again, I want to thank you for helping my son and me. We shall always be grateful to you, Inko bowed. Watching a blushing Katsuma get a picture taken with his first fan, Izuku, Shimano laughed and said, "Nonsense, if anything you've just kickstarted Katsuma's hero career." As Izuku signed Katsuma's autograph, Inko couldn't help but smile too, explaining that the photo and signature would prove that Katsuma was his first civilian save. "It truly is an honor for me." Izuku smiled back at the smaller boy, who blushed even more, his chest exploding with pride at the idea that someone else shared his desire to be a hero. Mahoro grinned at her brother. Although she was still against her younger brother becoming a hero, she was pleased that he had just saved someone and was able to fulfill his heroism ambition. Excuse me, we're looking for Izuku Midoriya. He was admitted here about 2 weeks ago." Mizuku Izuku. The nurse said, "Unfortunately, visiting is currently limited to immediate family only. He's been moved from the ICU to a regular room." "Are you immediate family?" "Well, sort of," was Kendo's response. "Sort of? What do you mean kind of?" the nurse inquired. Unsure of how to react, Kendo accepted that she wouldn't see her boyfriend until he was discharged from the hospital. However, just as he was speaking, Bakugo grabbed her arm and pulled her back to his side. "Listen here, nurse lady. Let's see the damn idiot already. This extra is the nerd's fiancé and I am his brother." The teenagers in front of her looked so young, and yet one of them was engaged to the injured teen. How times have changed, the nurse thought, jolting back in surprise at the young blonde's words. "Oh my." The nurse muttered, "Well, I suppose I could let you pass if you're his fiancé, and him. I suppose you do look like your father." "The fuck? I don't resemble Mr. Midoriya, do I?" After inhaling deeply, Bakugo said, "See, now please let us through." The nurse nodded and shrugged, saying, "Okay, so this is Mr. Midoriya's room number. Please keep quiet when visiting as Midoriya-san just woke up." "Thank you," Bakugo complained. At Bakugo's side, Kendo remained motionless, still taking in what the fiery teenager had made of her to persuade her to see Izuku. "Move it, manhands, or we'll never see your fiancé at this rate," Bakugo laughed. "You called me that, but why?" she growled. "Because if we hadn't, we never would have seen the nerd. Suck it up and start planning what you're going to call your weird-ass little kids. You and Deku are endgame, so get over it," laughed Bakugo. "Cease talking, Charlie," Bakugo declared. "It's certain that Deku will name one of his children after that American mime. Or perhaps All Might Jr. Bakugo's cackle became louder as Kendo complained, "The fact that you're probably right." "Yes, we're present." Before knocking, Bakugo says, "Shut up, man. It says be quiet." While he waits for someone to answer the door, Kendo deadpans, "God, I hate you." "Hina, Izuku Midoriya certainly has a large family, don't you think?" With a dejected expression on her face, Hina turned to face her fellow nurse. She couldn't understand how this woman got into the nursing field. "God, Sayaka, you're such an idiot, you're lucky you're hot." "What do you mean by that, exactly?" Katsuma and his family had left Izuku to return to their hotel, having completed their work at Musutafu and only needed to pack their bags and leave for home after confirming that Izuku was completely recovered and concluding their conversation about possibly meeting again. With his mother's assistance, Izuku was currently getting dressed because the handy villain's attack had left him sore. "Man, I'm eager to get home and begin getting ready for my upcoming street performance. Everyone must be missing me." Even after nearly losing everything, her son's silly attitude persisted, and Inko couldn't help but laugh at it. Inko chastised, "I know you all miss Deku the mime, but don't forget about your schoolwork. Or did you forget that Aizawa reminded you about the sports festival that's in 2 days?" Izuku had forgotten, as he looked sheepishly at his mother. "Well, like I said to Eraserhead, good thing I don't have any competition," Izuku grinned. With a shake of her head, Inko fixed her gaze on her son, who had a rather large head for his age. "Oh, your dad called. He's really sorry he couldn't visit you in person but is so glad you're on the mend." "Where he is?" A villain-facing Captain Celebrity approached the runways too closely, resulting in all airport cancellations. Izuku happily said, "Ah, Dad doesn't have to apologize, I know he wishes he coulda came." Izuku knew that his dragon-breathing dad loved him unconditionally and would stop at nothing to make sure he was safe. She was about to say something else when her phone rang. She answered it, listening to the person on the other end of the line as she watched Izuku carefully as he slowly put on his clothes and frowning a little at the scar on her son's back. But the more she heard, the more her frown turned upside down because they had just broken the funniest news Inko had ever heard. Kendo and Bakugo felt a chill run down their spine as they approached their best friend's door. For some reason, they felt compelled to turn around and not enter, but against all odds, they felt it was their duty to visit Izuku, and as soon as they stepped inside, they realized they had made the wrong decision. Before either could back out, Inko was speaking as she gave them a cunning smile that they both knew was not good for them. "Oh, Izuku, look, there's your fiancé Itsuka and brother Katsuki. It was very kind of you two to come." After chuckling, Inko left the room to sign Izuku's discharge documents. Izuku was just about to be released today then go home, but considering how well he's recovered I don't mind allowing him to go wander around with family. There seemed to be hours of silence between Bakugo and Kendo, but it was only a matter of seconds before Izuku's mother could murder them both with a few simple words. There was no turning back from this. When they went to investigate, they couldn't help but cringe at the delirious expression on Izuku's face, which only made matters worse. "You consider me to be a brother," Izuku gave a little squeak. "Shut up, nerd. I said that just to get inside," Bakugo blushed and said. With a sigh of relief, Kendo realized that, at least for the time being, Izuku had not mentioned that she was his fiancée. Then, Izuku turned to face his girlfriend, his eyes dead serious, a look that made Kendo a little uncomfortable. "Are you okay, baby?" Kendo inquired. Izuku gave his girlfriend a head tilt before he got down on one knee and said, "I accept your proposal." "Hey, that wasn't the point. All we wanted to do was enter," Kendo screamed, attempting to prevent her face from blushing. From his position on the ground, Izuku looked up and said, "Too late, we're engaged." Izuku laughed. "You can't just make such a decision." With a somewhat flattered expression on her face, Kendo exclaimed. Izuku saw them staying together long enough to get married. "Kakugo?" Izuku turned around and said, "Fine by me." "What? The matter is resolved. My best man, Bakugo, will marry me in the spring." "Of course," Izuku said as he gathered his belongings and started hobbling out of his hospital room. "We'll wait until we've made it to the top 10 and I'm the #1 hero, mime, whichever comes first." Izuku calculated, "Given how awesome I am, I give it 6 years till we're married." "Aren't we cocky?" Kendo said, giving up on resisting and accepting that her mime boyfriend is already arranging their nuptials. "If Nerd was being cocky, he would have said sooner," Bakugo said, sighing and turning to face his somewhat of a friend. "He is genuinely humble in that way." At Kendo's father's dojo, in the meantime, "Why does it seem like Mimi just did, without my consent, something really dumb to my daughter?" Kenta pondered. Jin approached their master while sipping a protein shake and remarked, "Probably because he did." The black belt student laughed. "Wouldn't be surprised if when Kendo comes home, she's engaged." Kenta snarled, "Don't jinx my daughter. You better buck the fuck up, nerd. I want you at your best when I beat the shit out of you at the sports festival Monday. Got it?" Bakugo yelled. Izuku ignored Bakugo's irate yells and waved his friend away. Izuku assumed he would be a good sport and accept his terms, even though he already knew he would win the sports festival. Yeah, I'll run a lap tomorrow if it makes you feel better." Izuku let out a sigh. Izuku's casual response caused Bakugo's face to flush abnormally red. "Make that 2 laps," exclaimed Bakugo as he walked away. As soon as Kendo realized her boyfriend had reached his apartment room safely, she did the same. "Bye babe, get some rest." Izuku yelled, "Bye, we can talk wedding details after the sports festival," as he dashed inside his apartment in response to a shoe that was aimed at him. "Babe, we're not goddamn IT. Inko sniffled. "Hisashi. Our baby's engaged." "Y'all hear that, guys? My boy's engaged to that cute chick that's way out of his league," Hisashi was boasting. "Didn't your kid barely turn 16 or something? 15 and a half, now shut up." From his spot on the ground, Izuku gasped, "Kami. Oh man. I am out of shape." Inko deadpanned, "Honey, You barely made it to the door. Wiping the perspiration from his brows, Izuku sighed, really? But I'm so winded. With concern, Inko gazed at her son, thinking that maybe he wasn't entirely recovered. Just as she was about to advise him against attending the sports festival, he announced as he rolled back to his room that he had finished working out for the day. Inko sighed, but you didn't even leave the house. Oh whatever, so long as you feel better that's all that matters, she was thinking. Katsuki, in the meantime, snarled at his cereal at the Bakugo household. He had a sneaking suspicion that his best friend wasn't paying attention to him and wasn't getting ready for the athletic event. That damn nerd, on the other hand, was probably dozing off. He was. Kendo let out a deep breath. She knew that her boyfriend was probably not paying attention to her advice to train before the sports festival and Bakugo's lecture. He was probably taking a nap instead. What am I saying, he doesn't even consider us competition, she quipped. He doesn't. When the sports festival finally arrived, everyone was gearing up in the locker room in their gym uniforms for what could have been the biggest sporting event to take place in Japan since the end of the Olympics. They couldn't help but miss their resident mime boy, even though they were all eager to show off their skills and attract the attention of all the heroes out there. What the heck? Sensei said Midoriya was gonna be here in time for the sports festival, so where is he? Kirishima sighed. Yeah, I thought Aizawa-sensei said Midoriya was gonna be back by the time the sports festival rolled around, but I haven't seen Midoriya anywhere. Mineta made the point. Has anyone been in contact with Deku since his release? Momo inquired. Everyone in 1A shook their heads. None of them had even considered approaching the mime trainee. Instead, they followed their sensei's advice and gave him space to rest. Wait, what about Bakugo? They're best friends, wouldn't he have seen Deku? Tsuyu responded. Oh yeah, yo Bakubro, any update on Midoriya's location? Replied Mineta. Why are you asking me? It's not like I have a tracker in the fucking nerd. And I'm not your Bakubro. Bakugo sighed. You don't? Inquired Kirishima. Mineta pouted. You're not. As his question went unanswered. Bakugo snorted but turned his head away to try and check his phone covertly because he didn't want anyone to find out that he had really placed a tracker in Deku's phone. Bakugo snarled. That damn nerd would be there. Babe, is there a reason why you're in 1B's locker room and not with your own class? Kendo murmured. I haven't seen you in so long, I just wanna hang out with you for as long as I can, Izuku sighed. Do you not want me here? Damn cute mime. Fine, you can stay. Just get off my lap. I need to stretch before. Bam. Bakugo barged into 1B's locker room before Kendo could even think to finish her sentence. Bakugo stormed into 1B's locker room, acting as though he belonged there, and his words were, Damn Deku, get your ass over here. I need to declare war with you before we step out. Oh, and just what is a lousy 1A extra doing in our locker room? Monoma exclaimed. Couldn't help but see who was going to beat you into submission. Bakugo turned back to Midoriya after gazing at the 1B big mouth. Hey, nerd, look here. Hey, did you hear me at all? Monoma moaned. Your quirk may be stronger than mine and you may be leagues ahead of me in its mastery, but I'm still gonna kick your ass, said Bakugo. Izuku chuckled and said, Ah, Kachan, you think you can beat me? I'm gonna make sure I kill you now. A different voice said, Sorry Bakugo, but I'll be the one to beat Midoriya. What? Bakugo and Midoriya turned to face the newcomer and said, Midoriya, you are, in all honesty, stronger than I am. However, my quirk is more adaptable, and I have total control over it. Izuku simply stared at him, seemingly icy hot, not realizing that Izuku had the same level of control over his quirk. My dearest dad is watching, and seeing as you're probably the strongest contender for number 1 in our class, beating you will help get him off my back for the time being. Well, my dad is also observing, so I suppose that makes two fathers observing us, right, Peppermint Candy? Oh my god, I'm going to kill you, mime boy. Quote. Is 1A going to take over our locker room right now? Tetsu inquired. Setsuna responded, I don't think so, it's probably just those 3 weirdos. Hi everyone, I found Midoriya. Kirishima cried out. Hello, Mido-kun, Izu bro. As she watched the entire 1A team storm into their locker room and then out while dragging their resident mime out, Setsuna deadpanned, I spoke too soon. Goodbye, sweetheart, hope you succeed in beating me today. Kendo muttered, cocky bastard. Class 1A, please make your way to the playing field. We're going here. The stadium was packed, with excited spectators, members of hero agencies, and even a few heroes who had taken the day off, all there to watch the first-year sports festival. This year, however, the scouts were bigger than ever, with profiles and pictures of every student in Class 1A, albeit oddly enough, with quirks blacked out. Nezu said, "It's a special surprise, and it will help get everyone the attention they deserve," as he distributed the paperwork, but that didn't really matter to the one student that most heroes had heard about and were eager to scout right away. That's right, the mime boy who had saved his class and 3 pros from villains by outrunning 6 heroes, and who was currently the target of intense search activity from almost every hero in the area. He simply wasn't aware of it yet. "Gentlemen and ladies, hey, can I get a present?" Mike got a response from the entire stadium. "That is what I enjoy. Thank you for visiting the first year's sports festival. Now they are the fighters, the survivors, the unbeatable Class A. We won't be losing time. The equally strong, undefeatable, and untouchable Class B follows them." Why wasn't there a synonym for that? Aizawa, who was sitting next to the eccentric hero, muttered, "I still don't know how he was chosen to be a co-commentator." "Eraserhead, calm down. We have general study classes C, E, and D next. Afterward, F, G, and H, the support course. And the courses in business, WHO will not be attending the events. Party poopers." "Language," Aizawa muttered. While Izuku couldn't help but interact with the support course students due to their eccentric behavior, they were mending and adjusting their numerous gadgets and trinkets. The heroic course students were nervous. The general studies students, on the other hand, muttered among themselves, annoyed that they are participating just to make the hero courses look better. "I'm incredibly anxious." With a quirky yell, Uraraka nearly made herself float. Iida muttered, "It's also a hero's duty to perform in front of so many people," and then she grabbed Ochako's shoulder to keep her grounded. "Very manly." Both Kirishima and Tetsu from Class 1B said this. The majority of students talked to each other, attempting to diffuse their nervousness. As for Izuku, he was busy discussing with Hatsume from the support course the possibility of working as his assistant in the future. She was becoming quite the character, and he was ready for it. Now is the right moment. Athletes swear an oath. A voice we knew well spoke. The audience enthusiastically greeted the heroine right away, and you could even hear wolf whistles as she posed on stage. However, she suddenly cracked her whip, silencing everyone in the process. At this moment, your pupil spokesperson is. Bakugo didn't need to hear about how the damn mime nerd had defeated him in the entrance exam again. Instead, he scoffed. Izuku Midoriya, from Class 1A, the new record holder for the most points gathered during the entrance exam. Izuku reveled in the attention, the acclaim, the looks of wonder. This was how he wanted to be perceived when he was the best mime, even though he was aware that he was still far from reaching his objective. "Izu bro is truly embracing his fame, don't you think?" Kaminari uttered. "Well, don't you think the guy deserves it for everything he's done for us?" Jiro responded in kind. "Yeah, Midoriya does." Kaminari laughed, shaking his head. Although he had rejected the position, he was still compelled to administer the student oath, so instead of complaining about it, our resident mime busied himself recalling the speech he had written. When Aizawa-sensei had visited him at the hospital, he had told him all about the student oath and how he would be the one to administer it. "Oh no, Pomeranian, why do I feel like I'm going to look foolish on national television?" Kendo shuddered. Bakugo sighed, "Because man hands, you are. Apart from Kendo, none of you will get off easy from me. That is Kendo Itsuka, my companion, present-day fiancé, future hero partner, and future wife. A few days ago, we became engaged. I was in the most romantic place. It was the shut up and get on with it. You shut up, Kachan. No, you shut up. Make me. Don't test me, nerd. I'll test you all I want, Blondie." "Oh yeah. Yeah," Kirishima inquired. Did those two forget about the festival?" Uraraka remarked. "I think so. Come up here and show me what ya got, explosive boy." "I'll show ya. Easy boys, easy. As much as I love the sight of two boys fighting, we need to get the sports festival started." In the middle of choking Bakugo, Izuku turned to face Miss Midnight and apologized. "Sorry, Midnight Sensei." Still biting Izuku's arm, Bakugo snarled. That, the nerd said. The two students captivated the attention of the entire stadium. Those were definitely two to watch. "That's my boy. Boom boom boy, you take that." Hisashi joined his colleagues in cheering, enjoying the sports festival together and laughing heartily at the antics of their coworkers' sons. Man, Hisashi's son sure is a hoot. Alright, so this is the first event, an obstacle race. Midnight yelled as she cracked her whip toward the display board. Every student forms a line. The entrance was approached by the students, who were reminded to play fairly by a picture of a smiling Nezu. Yes, indeed, all eccentricities are acceptable under the rules. The pupils, feeling even more energized, applauded. All of those who had encountered Midoriya's quirk during the entrance exam started to perspire. They had to get past Midoriya before he could trap them like he did that day. Unfortunately for Todoroki, he had barely managed to get a spot in the middle of the pack, while Izuku had gotten one at the very front of the line. They had no idea that their efforts had been in vain. While this was going on, Bakugo started getting ready for whatever his friend had planned. Fortunately, he moved quickly enough to secure a front row spot and was ready to power through whatever the nerd threw at him. Kendo, on the other hand, accepted that she would probably end up embarrassed and stopped worrying about where she would end up. The other students were all getting excited in different ways. The girl with the vine-like hair had her hands clasped together, whispering something. Kirishima and his twin Tetsu were using their peculiarities to clench their fists and bang them together. The guy with the purple hair was wishing everyone luck, and almost everyone was responding. However, when he went to greet the boy with the green hair, he encountered an invisible barrier that prevented him from getting any closer. Shinso thought, weird, okay, so long as you're all set to go now. Midnight declared. Next, 3, 2, just 1. Go. Izuku executed his plan immediately, grabbing his girlfriend by the waist, tossing her over his shoulder, and running away without turning around. Suddenly, he lifted a sign that said, "Bye. Damn it, sweetheart." From her perch atop Izuku's shoulder, Kendo yelled. Ah, that's exactly what I expected from young Midoriya, everyone nodded. Trapping your competition, so you have no competition, I've trained you well. Upon witnessing the lone student effortlessly complete the course with a girl on his back, the other heroes were taken aback by what they saw when they returned to the entrance. They turned back to All Might, who was still gazing proudly at the green-haired student, realizing that the mime boy was becoming even more formidable than they had initially thought. If they hadn't already bid for him to be their sidekick, they would be doing so now. I raised that boy, Inko boasted to the people seated nearby, causing everyone who had heard her to turn to stare in awe at the slender woman with green hair. What a monster she produced. Just a few moments before, a powerful gust of cold air swept over the stadium just as Midnight gave the all-clear, adding another obstacle to the already existing one, trying to get out of the entrance and onto the obstacle course itself. When the students threw themselves at the entrance, they all realized with horror that there was no way out. Those who kept trying to escape kept falling backwards, and others found their feet frozen to the ground. It turned out that the gust of wind was not merely an isolated weather anomaly, but rather the work of Todoroki, the resident ice user of 1A, who had attempted to freeze everyone in place so he could escape first. The results of this hastily devised plan were not what Todoroki had anticipated. What? Why am I unable to leave? Todoroki snarled as he attempted to break through the dozens of frozen students, but he ran into an imperceptible wall. Hold on a moment, an imperceptible wall. Oh no, Midoriya. Look at that. Todoroki from 1A. WHO was able to banish nearly all of his competition. But in the end the problem child managed to foil everyone's plan and effectively eliminate his competition. Aizawa murmured. Present Mike laughed and said, oh, yeah. But look at that. Looks like someone made it out with the way they're chasing after Midoriya. Present Mike gave a cheer. Well, that's not the only person who's. Bakugo exclaimed, damn nerd. When I get you, you're gonna regret it. You little. Kendo cried, baby, please put me down already. Izuku had refused to let his girlfriend go from her spot on his shoulder ever since the obstacle race began. Not only did he want her to go on to the next round, but he also had a fantastic view. Izuku, I know you're staring at my ass. No, I'm not. Izuku, but it's right there. Babe, stop staring at my ass. We'll take this further later, Izuku murmured to Kendo's behind. Kendo asked, attempting to keep her hair out of her face, what did you say, Izuku? Nothing. You realize once those 3 passes the finish line we're going to have to redo a second obstacle course for the other participants, right? Present Mike glanced first at the Eraserhead and then at every other competitor confined behind their miniature mime's wall. Well damn, This is gonna be a long day. Returning with Midnight. And tied for first place we have Izuku. What's that? You wanna be introduced as a couple? Oh, you mean by your well. Okay. Said Midnight. Midnight exclaimed, let's try this again. Itsuka Midoriya and Izuku tied for first place. The crowd went crazy for the teen wild card with bushy hair and his fiancée. They were already establishing themselves as formidable opponents. A few fans shouted from their place in the crowd, oh man, those two are gonna be such an iconic hero duo. And Katsuki, Explosion Boy, Bakugo comes in third place. That's Deku's the Great's assistant. No way, it's Explosion Boy. Bakugo snarls, attempting, but failing, to pursue the teenager who was still carrying his girlfriend on top of his shoulder. Deku, I said I didn't want that name. Babe, put me down already. No, I think that ends the obstacle race part. Midoriya-kun, if you could let the other students go, that would be great so we can set up another obstacle course. All the first years who had been trying to break through the barrier he had put up were finally freed with a simple snap of his fingers, though he didn't even need to do that. It was purely theatrical. We're liberated. Now guys, watch as I destroy everyone. Tetsu cried out. With a mumble, Todoroki said, not likely, to shoot ice at his opponents once more. Up, bup. Now, little ones, hold on. This obstacle course is going to be over for you. Rather, we will be creating a new one just during a short intermission. For you, Midnight disclosed. What the heck? Everyone please go for some snacks or the bathroom while we are spicing things up for these kids, stated Midnight. Why can't we just go through the? Because I stated as much. Midnight spoke, interrupting Suyu. Stupid. What on earth have you been up to? Bakugo gave a growl. While the other first-year students waited for the new obstacle course, Kendo and I were having sex in the girls' restroom. Why? Love you, baby. Kendo blushed and coughed. You two were sucking face for so long that you missed them calling everyone back during the obstacle course and the intermission, you idiots. We actually started by revealing the details of the upcoming second round. So we're not running late, said Izuku. Right on schedule, Kendo continued. You people are idiots. Bakugo shrugged, but yeah. Although that was a very interesting obstacle race, our 41 competitors are now proceeding to the next round. Congratulations to those who were able to fight their way forward. If you didn't, my boy is to blame. Hey, exclaimed Izuku. Izuku protested, but Midnight said, now it's time to find out what our next event will be. And the event is, Cavalry Battle. Izuku shrugged and said, Cavalry Battle huh? Sounds lame but I'll bite. Shut it nerd, we haven't even heard the rules yet. Thank you Bakugo. Now then you will be forming teams of either 2-4 people. One person will be the rider and the others will be, the horse. Each player will be given a certain amount of points and together your team will be given a headband with your total points combined. Izuku said, oh, sounds easy. Midnight growled, shut up, I haven't finished miming. Sorry, as I was saying, the point systems go as followed with the 41st player having 5 and then doubling on to the next one and so on, said Midnight. Oh, so then I'll have like. Midnight exclaimed, but here's a twist, first place gets 10 million points. With a sinister sparkle in her eye. Izuku laughed and scratched his unkempt hair, saying, oh, my math was way off. Izuku, no they're just, never mind. Well, good luck and have fun choosing your teams. Izuku grinned and said, well, looks like this is gonna be a tough round right babe? Pointing to the spot where his girlfriend had previously been. Babe. Izuku finally noticed where his girlfriend was standing by looking around, and he gasped in betrayal. His girlfriend had partnered with no one else but. Pay attention Bakugo or we're gonna lose to Izuku within the first 5 seconds of the round. Kendo screamed. Izuku sulked, betrayed by my own fiancé. Well anyone else wanna be with me? I can cook, kinda. I'm strong. When I wanna be. Is anyone still without a partner? Izuku screamed wildly. Someone beat the many students who were about to charge up to the mime and form a team with him. Mineta said, hey Izu bro wanna team up? He was desperately hoping that Izuku would at least take him on, since no one else seemed to want him on their team. Izuku immediately came up with a plan, saying, hell yeah. You ride on my shoulders and I'll just create walls surrounding us so no one can even think of touching us. Kendo muttered, oh, what have we done Bakugo? What we've done is fucked up, Bakugo sighed. And that's time for choosing teams. On to the real cavalry battle. Mineta questioned, so, what's the game plan, Mido bro? As he mounted the mimes, shoulders in anticipation of the cavalry battle. Izuku carefully assessed his opponents by scanning the arena. His girlfriend and Bakugo were the only students he saw who would genuinely be a challenge for him. Not because they were as strong and skilled as he was. No, what they had on him was a very effective combination of seduction and blackmail. Whoa, who was he kidding? They weren't going to beat him after all, but it was adorable that they gave it their best shot. Those two are very cute as they try to push past me. Bakugo complained, that fucking nerd is looking down on us man hands. No, he's not, he has a little respect. Oh wait, never mind, he just created a platform so he can look down on us, Kendo grumbled. Bakugo gave an order, I'ma kick his ass, and you're helping me. Yeah, we both know I'm just going to flash him to distract him, said Kendo. Bakugo snarled, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Izuku said, you comfy up there, Mineta. All good. Awesome, now I just gotta make some of these, and prepare that, and boom. Izuku replied. Mineta didn't really question what, exactly, his friend had just prepared, but she was unsure as she stared at the area surrounding him. Mineta saw no reason to question what Izuku, his mime brother, was doing, considering that he was the best student in 1A. He was aware that they would most likely take first place in the end. Alright then, here's your fishing pole Mineta and here's mine. Alright Mineta, you ready to go fishing? Mineta looked at his friend, not understanding what he was saying. In the middle of a cavalry battle, how in the hell were they going fishing? Even though Midoriya's incredible power would prevent anyone from approaching them, he wasn't sure how they were going to fish. Mido bro, how are we going fishing and for what? Izuku asked, as if it weren't evident, with the fishing poles I just made, duh. He grinned and said, and well, for whatever catches our fancy. Alright, listen up you fucking extras. The only ones here who truly know that nerd's shitty ass true power is me and man hands here. So, here's how it's gonna go. I'll be on top, with man hands in front for when we decide to go on the offense. Yaomomo, we'll need you and Kirishima in the back for support defense, got it? Kendo responded. The two 1A students gave the plan a nod of agreement. Not that I don't trust your plan, Bakugo, but my quirk is very versatile, therefore I think I should be in front for offense, don't you think? Momo responded. Shaking their heads, Bakugo and Kendo turned to face the heiress. No, because Midoriya might be distracted enough to let down his guard by anything, and that something is. To the surprise of all but one of her teammates, my boobs were exposed when Kendo took off her Ua jersey and showed off a slender white tank top. Bakugo had already concluded that if they had any chance of winning, man hands and breasts were the way to go. Momo was horrified as she looked at Kendo, wondering how she could ever be so lowly in front of so many people. Yeah, Bakugo said, pausing briefly before focusing on the one thing that might guarantee their triumph. Bakugo grinned evilly and said, holy shit, man hands, I just got the craziest idea. Skeptically, Kendo turned to face Bakugo, and when she saw what he was eyeing, she realized they had virtually won the cavalry battle. At the same moment, Bakugo and Kendo said, alright, change of plans everyone. Line break. Action now. It appears that everyone has divided into teams, so let the battle of cavalry commence right now. Midnight declared. OMG. While it seemed strange that the two teammates weren't moving from their spot despite over 30 students rushing towards them, the few who stayed behind knew that Izuku had no qualms about the rush of opponents heading towards him because he was already protected from everyone. Monoma yelled, heading straight for Izuku and Mineta. Ribbit, I take it we're avoiding Deku? Tsuyu inquired. As he and Tsuyu hurried after those who were still debating whom to pursue, Shoji exclaimed, definitely. Izuku explained, so, you see, you just whip it back like this, and then when you feel a pull on it, you pull back and whoa. Even though it wasn't what I was going for, Mineta, you're still quite the catch. Izuku laughed and showed Mineta the results of his hard work. A sports bra with a ruby red color that appeared to be meant for someone with a lot of money was in Izuku's hands. Mineta snorted and said, oh boy, whoever this belonged to has some big boobs. Explain it to me, anyway, you understand how to use the fishing poles to grab the headbands, don't you? Izuku clarified, ignoring the girlish screams coming from not too far away. Yes, this will be an easy victory for us. As he and Izuku positioned themselves for some fishing, Mineta gave a cheer. Okay, extras, get ready. Ponytails is going to use that jetpack to get us moving when I say to. Ah, Kendo yelled in concern. What happened, Momo? Why are you screaming? My sports bra is gone. Who took my sports bra? Momo wept. After exchanging glances, Bakugo and Kendo shook their heads. They were prepared to punish the fool since they already knew who had done it. Kendo sighed and said, "Don't worry, Momo, we'll get your bra back." She exclaimed, "How was that even possible?" The two Izuku Antics veterans just shrugged. The mechanics of the boy's quirk baffled even them. Kendo comforted him, saying, "Look just like make a new one and prepare yourself, okay? Oh, but make sure it's black, alright, Izuku likes that color." Momo could only nod resignedly, realizing that their crazy plan was probably their best chance of winning and that there was nothing else she could do but go ahead with it. Mineta exclaimed, "Whoa, dude, that's a huge score." Izuku smiled and nodded in agreement, saying, "Fishing is so fun. Everyone prepare yourselves. Jiro, you use your whatever power it is you have to throw them off their feet and Ashido toss your acid at the wall Midoriya made." "There's no way that thing can handle even acid," Todoroki said. "Kaminari, I want you to use your electricity on them after Ashido melts their shield." "Got it." "So, there I was sriracha sauce on my titties." Mineta yelled, "Stop, stop. Izu bro, you don't even have titties." As she watched everyone struggle to get to them, Izuku was currently retrieving a ton of headbands while recounting a hilarious story. "And who said that we men cannot have the right to label our chest titties too?" Izuku exclaimed. "Why do only women like Midnight, Ryaku, or even Mount Lady have the right to label their chest titties? I say no more, my friend. Going forward, I will only." "Izuku Midoriya, please stop talking so much and return to the competition." For the first time in her career, Midnight was embarrassed as she yelled. Izuku played the game as instructed, but not before he made a tongue-out gesture towards the dominatrix hero. Groups of teams were dropping out of the game like flies, but at this point it was a one-sided slaughter. Izuku and Mineta had already amassed about a neckful of headbands, practically guaranteeing their win, and once they lost their headband, they knew it would be nearly impossible to get it back, so they just went to sitting on the sidelines with the business students. That was, of course, those cowards. A completely different battle was being fought on the opposing side of the field by Todoroki and his group, who, for some reason, were never able to cross a particular point on the field, forcing them to engage in combat with nearly half of the remaining teams. This wouldn't have been so difficult if the remaining teams hadn't all decided to band together and begin attacking Todoroki's group. "You guys are embarrassing me, I guess. I have to get to Midoriya right away." Todoroki had initially told him and his group to head straight to the mime, but something had interrupted them, and before they knew what was going on, a throng of students fighting for their headband was attacking them from all directions. Todoroki had no idea that Izuku had boxed him and a few others in a gigantic box, thinking he would be one of Candy Cane's targets. They were all too busy attacking the boy with two powers to notice that they were confined to a small area. "Hee hee, nice work, my boy. It's brilliant to tackle every opponent in one area." All Might gave a cheer. Professionals surrounding All Might looked at each other strangely for a moment before realizing that the reason why it appeared as though half the UA students were trapped fighting on one side and the other half on the other was because that mime kid had trapped them in that manner. How strong was this kid? But while everyone else thought Izuku and Mineta had won the fight and were the clear winners, they had almost completely overlooked another team that had been steadily gaining ground on the two of them while sporting a good number of headbands of their own. Team Baka. Momo, it's our combined name. Shut up Yaomomo, was on a different level. Well, not really, but they had an edge over Izuku that no other team possessed. With a determined sparkle in her eyes, Kendo said, "Alright guys, you ready?" As she slowly unzipped her jersey in preparation to take it off in front of Izuku. "You know it, and remember once you get him to look at you, strip off that jersey faster than shitty hair can say, Red Riot." Momo asked, unzipping her jersey far too slowly. "Is this really going to work? I mean, from what I've learned from spending time with Izuku, he seems to be smarter than he looks, and that's even while acting like a mime. Yeah, Izu bro doesn't seem like he'll fall for a trick like this that easily." Kirishima concurred. Kendo and Bakugo both burst out laughing at their friends. "You'd think, huh," laughed Bakugo. "And see, that's the beauty of it. Because he is smart enough to not fall for it, but in the end my breasts win out." Kendo grinned. "Ponytail's boobs are just to give us an edge." Mineta tries to mentally block out the details of what transpired between him and his foolish teammate whenever someone asks him about the first round of his first-year sports festival. To be fair, the way it all unfolded made it feel like they lost even though they didn't technically lose. He thought there was no time for a reversal because the round was about to end in 2 minutes, but he was incredibly mistaken. Rather, he and Izuku Midoriya endured what became recognized as the most ignominious loss in the history of UA's sports festival. Damn sexy boobs. Even more bizarre is the fact that nobody was able to capture the event on camera or even watch it on television due to an odd commercial that appeared in the middle of the show, so the only people who truly witnessed it know how it all transpired. How fortunate we are. Just as Mineta was about to pull a headband off a real horse girl, he noticed something out of the corner of his eye. It was nearly enough to cause him to tumble off his teammate's shoulders, which turned out to be his fatal error as it caused Izuku to turn and see what had nearly knocked Mineta down. A short distance away from the location of the two fools stood Bakugo's group, who had devised a very flimsy scheme. They did, however, decide to move forward in spite of any negative feedback. Okay, Yaomomo, are you ready? With a sigh, Yaoyorozu completed removing her UA jersey. Let's do this. How could she tell her family what was going to happen in the next 10 seconds? Good, now then, water bottles, shitty hair. Ready to go, he nodded. Alright, shitty hair now. Once Kendo and Yaomomo removed their UA jerseys, Bakugo and Kirishima quickly used their water bottles to pour them over the girls in positions 1A and 1B. In a matter of seconds, Kendo and Yaoyorozu transformed from esteemed UA students to, well, somewhat respectable UA students. Just ones who appeared as though they had participated in a wet t-shirt competition. Aizawa, taken aback by his students' behavior, exclaimed, "What in the hell is going on right now?" Nezu completely ignored his peer and simply cackled at the students below. This year's students were a quiet lot. Izuku was about to take his sixth headband when he noticed something out of the corner of his eye. He made every effort to turn his head away, but as soon as he did, he realized he was lost. His best friend's team and girlfriend were standing motionless just 10 feet away from where he was fighting everyone. If his girlfriend and the class vice president hadn't looked like they had just stepped out of a wet t-shirt contest, he wouldn't have stopped in the middle of their fight. Holy shit, they just threw away their shirt, Izuku exclaimed, his mind walls collapsing due to a brief moment of inattention. Oh my god, she's shirtless. Mineta Lu, wait, don't actually look, but like imagine. No, don't do that either, dude. My girlfriend is soaking wet and so is Yaomomo and their boobs are in full V. And that's time. The winner of the cavalry battle is Team Baka, with second place going to Team Mimi, third place is What just happened? Izuku inquired after gaining consciousness. Before he knew it, the cavalry battle winners were being announced, and somehow, he had lost. Well, not exactly lost. He had still placed second, but not first, which was virtually a given. What took place? Mineta exclaimed, you got played by your fucking girlfriend, Izu, bro. The midget student was shocked by what had transpired. After winning for a moment, Bakugo leapt over the mime to grab their million-point headband before being hauled back onto his teammates' backs. Mineta would be furious if he hadn't seen two girls practically flash him. Aizawa questioned, you censored that from the live showing, right? Oh, as soon as I saw them unzipping their jackets, I put on an All Might commercial for shampoo, Nezu chuckled. He was not going to allow anyone to witness his students being exposed in that manner. Additionally, there was a brief period during which no electronics functioned, as anyone who attempted to record it will see. Come on, shitty hair, let's go get a drink. I'm fucking thirsty from this shitty ass round. Kirishima exclaimed joyfully, hell yeah, let's go, bro. As they headed out to celebrate. See, I told you we'd win, grinned Kendo. Even the rarely smiling Bakugo had been grinning at his ability to deceive his childhood friend. Yaoyorozu sighed and said, yes, but at what cost? Izuku wisely explained as he approached his previous opponents, cost of nothing, you won and you're going to the next round, so get over it and accept that this is what some heroes need to do to get one over on their opponent. When the Jokers said something so serious, Momo's face fell. However, they struck her hard enough to make her reconsider whether what she had just done was truly so embarrassing as to be unworthy of her status as a hero in training. I humbly accept my defeat to such admirable opponents, Izuku grinned. Also, if we could get a picture of you guys like that to memorialize the time I lost to you via wet t-shirt, that would be great. With a smile on her face, Kendo approached her boyfriend slowly, lifted his chin with her finger, and whispered, fat chance, in his ear. Critical hit, staggered red-faced to the floor as Izuku fell. Setsuna asked innocently, Midoriya, would you like to participate in 1A's and 1B's mid-break activity? Izuku, like with everything he decides to do, dragged Bakugo into it because he did not think this was going to be a bad idea at all. Bakugo, who was being filmed and watched by thousands of people, screamed, you goddamn shitty ass, green-haired, barely doing birthday parties mime-looking ass wipe. Did you even check what the hell we were doing? In an attempt to hide his embarrassment, Izuku was forced to acknowledge that, for once, he was also a little embarrassed by what was going on and had neglected to find out exactly what he was assisting with. He and Kacchan were currently posing with, well, nobody, wearing skimpy cheerleader costumes. During the break, those two were the only fools who gave in to Setsuna's plea for assistance. It seems that she was also a known practical joker, so 1A wanted to get some rest and 1B knew to avoid her. Tokage, how the hell did you get my boyfriend to dress up in a skimpy cheerleader outfit that shows more skin than Momo's hero costume? Kendo gasped. Hey, you know, she's not wrong, Uraraka laughed. I told him you wanted to do this couple routine thing during break and he was all for it once he saw what you were gonna potentially be wearing, Setsuna laughed. Of course, he did the damn pervert. And Bakugo. Setsuna laughed when she saw what the two idiots were now up to. Oh, I actually don't know about him, Deku got him involved somehow. Even after realizing it was all a farce, they continued to wear their skimpy attire. Kendo, your boyfriend can adapt to any environment, can't he? Yui responded. Even though Kendo was afraid to look, she decided to put up with the humiliation now since she knew this would eventually end up online. Kendo turned to see what was going on and saw that her best friend and boyfriend were acting like complete idiots as usual. Kendo practically cried, my god. I'm on top, you stupid Deku. Izuku protested, no, I am. I'm leaner so it'll be easier to hold me. Just use your dumb ass quirk to create a platform and hold me up. The bottom should go on the bottom anyway. Kacchan laughed. Who told you I was a bottom? You did just now, idiot. Ha ha ha. I knew manhands wore the pants in the relationship. Yelled Kacchan, who was sporting a crop top and cheerleading skirt, so he didn't exactly look menacing. Now then, get your ass bowing down and lift me up so we can get this routine on the road. Disturbed by Kacchan's crude remark, but eager to continue the pattern, Izuku complied. Whatever, fine. Present Mike questioned, what the fuck is wrong with your students, Aizawa? Aizawa mumbled, I do not claim those idiots. Izuku began his and Bakugo's cheer while getting his pom-poms ready, which Setsuna was certain were not a part of the costume she had originally given him. 1.2, ready go. Shabuya sha sha Shibuya roll call. Ha 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 ha, that's my boy, exclaimed All Might. Mount Lady questioned, what the hell are those two doing? Snipe, doing his best not to laugh, declared, I think those two idiots are doing an unplanned cheer. Masaru, yes, honey, why? I don't know, my name is Deku, yeah. I like to mime, yeah, my girlfriend Kendo. Ooh, she's really good, with the biggest smiles on their faces. All of 1A and 1B couldn't help but turn to said girlfriend. They were never going to let the poor girl live this down. I should end our relationship, Kendo muttered to herself. The idea sounded appealing, but she knew in her heart that she was infatuated with the moron. The audience was enthralled with the spontaneous and unnecessary encouragement, and the mime boy proved to be a skilled cheerleader, with the audience thoroughly enjoying his performance. They were now impatiently awaiting the turn of the blonde explosive boy. They address me as Katsuki. Indeed. I create explosions. Indeed. When I smile. Ha, the girls go will. DAAAAAMMMMMMMN. And the entire arena went crazy, just as Bakugo had predicted, as he threw a smile or smirk at the crowd. It's my boy. I grown that kids, Mitsuki Bakugo exclaimed to the boisterous assembly that was currently applauding her strangely attired son. Ha 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 ha. Look at him and Kacchan. What a fool my kid is. Hisashi, your son just flashed everyone by flipping around in a miniskirt, a colleague, flushed from laughter, yelled. Wait, look, his girlfriend is dragging him off the field by the ear and yelling at him while his friend rolls around on the ground laughing. With a giggle, Inko Midoriya said, oh my, looks like I need to teach my son a lesson in not embarrassing his family name. The throng that had gathered around her instantly parted, afraid to face her fury. Her aura was as powerful as one of All Might's Detroit's smash hits. Yes, nobody wanted to be anywhere close to that woman right then. Okay, but this was meant to embarrass the boys and instead I think we just got those guys to get popular. Setsuna was perplexed. Yes, the power of Deku the mime is as well, Momo wisely nodded. Now that the strange intermission has ended, let's move on to round 2. We have about 20 contenders, Midnight declared. The winner advances to the winner bracket, the loser advances to the loser bracket, and so on and so forth until we have our winner, understood? When people raised their hands to ask questions, Midnight chose not to answer, despite the fact that the system was simple. So, our first round will be going to these two people. Take it away, Present Mike. Alright, up first is a nobody who I didn't even realize got into this school, apparently has made it through the rounds to get here and would like to get into the hero course. Shinso Hatoshi. Aizawa sighed, was that really necessary? No, but I like drama. Line break. Shinso Hatoshi, the boy who was labeled a villain by everyone for his entire life, said, just get through the rounds and the hero class will be your Shinso. He was resolved to. Bakugo yelled, Oi, eyebags, you done with you brooding party? It seemed that the explosion user had been waiting for the other one to finish dozing off before taking action. TCH, whatever, I think'll take your spot in the hero class. Shinso laughed. The hell you talk. Shinso smiled, and you're done. Izuku knew something was wrong the moment he saw Kachan look like he had just eaten one of their special brownies and that creepy kid with insomnia start to smirk. Babe, what's going on with Bakugo? He's literally about to walk out of bound. Kendo made the point. The spectators watched in disbelief as the man, who was already widely recognized as a strong candidate for first place, started to go downhill. What on earth was going on? Aizawa started explaining over the megaphone, making it seem like he was the only one who knew. Shinso Hatoshi, General Ed. Quirk. Brainwash. The boy applied for the hero course but he failed the physical test. His quirk isn't bad, I'll give him that, the 1A instructor sighed and continued, but our entrance exam is suited for his ability, hence the reason he's in Gen Ed. Present Mike now understood the boy's motivation for putting up such a fight. I guess it's understandable, he's fighting his hardest to get a spot in the hero course by trying to knock out one of our top contenders, and honestly by the looks of it he's about. A rough voice from the bleachers yelled, your mom's a MILF, Kachan 10/10 would tap. As Present Mike finished talking about the boy who appeared to be suffering from insomnia. Many will recount the tale of the UA Sports Festival's moment of silence for years to come because of the absurd outburst that was shouted at that very moment. There was a loud slap of flesh on flesh, and that was the only sound heard as the entire arena fell silent. Nobody moved or spoke. Then the games got back on. What? Still got it. You never lost it, honey. Babe. Everything became clear to Bakugo as if a record had broken, and he not only planned to kill the idiot sitting across from him but also the guy getting beat up by his girlfriend in the stands. Deku. I am going to fucking kill you. Izuku yelled back, no need to thank me. In an attempt to protect himself from his girlfriend's wrath. Even though he knew he could easily make something to accomplish that, he was aware that doing so would only worsen his punishment. After turning to face the explosion user, he gave Shinso a menacing smile and, realizing his quirk, mimed severing his neck. Oh foo. Boom. Midnight muttered, welp, he's down. Ahem. And first round goes to Bakugo. Congratulations. 5 moments. The blonde later acknowledged that, to be kind, he had given the fight an extra 3 seconds, but that was all it took for Bakugo to end it. Shinso remembered his fight as he lay in agony in the infirmary. He was certain that he was going to defeat that brash brute in the opening round. Once the idiot started talking, he managed to push him all the way to the edge of the platform. It was his day to win. He would win, and the blonde idiot was only 5 steps away. The fact that his hero course teacher had complimented him so much on his quirky side had made him feel even better. Thus, how in the world had he beaten in the ass? Oh, as a result of that moron. He scowled as he stared at the screen in front of him, jealous of how effortlessly the mime boy defeated his opponent without even trying. Did he literally pretend to whip out a lasso and swing that monkey kid out the ring? Shinso inquired. The recovery girl laughed and said, oh yeah, and he'll probably do some more stupid stuff in the coming matches. She was secretly rooting for the mime boy to win even though she would never publicly acknowledge it. She developed a deep affection for the young teen following the USJ event. She could not help but be partial to the mime hero because his sacrifice had saved so many of her students. Anyways, you're not too banged up, so out you go. After glancing at the elderly hero to make sure she wasn't joking, Shinso slowly staggered out of the infirmary and toward his classroom box. Yes, it was a rather unpleasant day. Bakugo yelled, "Oh eyebags, get some sleep already, you look like a fucking zombie, it's scaring people," as he left to grab a snack. Yup, really shitty.